is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Tonight we are back in the shop and we actually have a new project in here. I told myself I wasn't going to take on any customer builds until I got the Dead Plates Jeep ready for the Beast Wars competition this October.
I'm not a smart man.
So tonight we've got a Cherokee in the shop and we're going to be putting on, as you can see, quite a bit of parts. The customer here said he has had this Jeep for several years and he really hasn't done anything to it except for just clean it. Obviously, he's kept up really nice. The interior is flawless. There's really no dents in this thing. But I was talking with him and he saw what we did to Patrick's XJ and he wanted to do something similar. What we have is I believe this is the 8.5-inch Iron Rock Off-Road, the Rock Link. So it's a 3-link in the front and it's actually a 4-link in the rear. And as you can see, I kind of ran out of room on my little Christmas morning table right here, but there is a ton of parts and pieces. I haven't even unboxed it all yet just because there's literally so much that comes in this kit. But there are some things up here that don't come in the kit. Things like this Arctic truss. We're going to be putting that on the Dana 30 in the front. Then we've got the C-gussets right there for the knuckles on the Dana 30. We've got some sway bar links, offset transmission mount. And then right here is pretty much the meat and potatoes of the Iron Rock kit. And, you know, we're going to get into that thoroughly as we get there. But then we've got some Cav Fab steering. And these brackets right here, Cav Fab, that's for the track bar. Got the coil springs down there. Got all the hardware in there. And then this is the rear 4-link. Of course, you know, we have to put everything together. And then we have to obviously weld on the truss to the rear axle. And we're going to be getting rid of the leaf springs in the back. And we're going to be putting those coil springs in. We're going to be running these super cool trail tamers. Yeah, we're going to be putting on a lot of stuff. I think the first thing we're going to do is get the XJ up in the air and start taking everything apart. So what I like to do is I like to get the Jeep up in the air and then I just go around and then take all of the nuts off the bolts and just leave the bolts inside. That way I can lower it down onto my table and then all I gotta do is pop, and then the weight of the axle will be on this little table and then we can slide it out and do what we need to do. So we're kind of having some issues with getting the brake lines off of the unibody because it looks like there's some kind of industrial rubber coating that has been sprayed on here. Let's see if you can see it better on this side. Yes, it's pretty bad, but check this out. This thing is like super nice. It's got like all the plastics. It's even got the inner fender well. Like, that is like super rare to me. We normally don't work on Cherokees this nice. Probably lower the Jeep down and get it close to this table and then start popping some of these bolts out and basically just revealing everything that we forgot to unbolt. So it's the next day. We got the axle out of the Jeep last night, and of course we got it on this little rolling table so that way we can move it around. We're going to be doing quite a bit to this axle. We are not going to be re-gearing and putting in the locker right now. He said that he's going to wait and possibly do it himself. So all I'm really going to be doing, getting them set up to go to the 3-link. And then in the rear, I'm going to be just welding on the truss and getting it set up with the 4-link and coil spring conversion and stuff. So basically where I'm at right now is I need to get this Dana 30 stripped down. And what I mean by that is I need to get this steering out of the way. Don't know if I'm going to be reusing the sway bar mounts, but I need to get that off at least. I don't know if I can use these just yet, but I don't want to cut them off too soon. I do know I have to remove this because the way that truss is, it's going to be going right across the top right there. So I'm going to be cutting that off and cleaning it up. Basically just cleaning up the axle really good. I'm going to go start doing this pretty much because it's easy. Patrick will be here soon. He's going to be helping me, and I'm going to give him probably the worst job of it all. I'm going to get him to scrape off that nasty undercoating that those XJs have. Bruh. I don't know why they thought it would be a good idea to put all that extra undercoating, especially on this one. I've never really seen one with that much, it's like spray, rubbery undercoating mess, but that'll be Patrick's job for when he gets here. I'm not going to tell him that because then he probably wouldn't show up. All right, so that really wasn't that bad, getting all that steering components off and everything. So now I'm going to come in here with the plasma cutter and just make this as smooth as possible right here. That way, the least amount, the way I see it, the least amount of grinding that I have to do, the better. So plasma cutter, I can just come right there. The thickest part is going to be this weld because this right here is just super thin metal, and these are pretty much garbage, but these are good. That's solid. This is not a good, it's just an open end design. And that truss goes right along here, and it has points, it has mounts to put these on, but I believe this is the 3-link, and the 3-link is going to be on the driver's side, so I really don't need this 4th link on top. But I'm going to talk with the owner of the Jeep and see what he wants. If he wants that 4th link on top, just for whatever reason, then we'll weld it on. Alright, so I've got the whole axle tube right here cleaned up, but before I start welding on that Arctic truss, I want to clean up the rest of this axle where the knuckle gussets are going to go. These are also from Arctic, and let me show you how they work. So this is what they call a C, an inner C of an axle. And as you can see, there's a lot of leverage on this section of metal right there, just because the ball joint and everything. And then you start throwing big tires and you start rock crawling, you throw a locker in there. It's going to put a lot of stress on this area right here. Well, Arctic Industries makes these gussets that weld in right here. I've got to clearance them just a wee bit, but so it'll sit flush once I clean it up and tap it with a hammer. But that's going to brace up this whole section right here. And then you've got this bottom section right here. Wait, that's the wrong side. But then you have these bottom gussets, and they go right there. See? Look how cool that is. I'm also going to be replacing this bushing, so I probably need to go and get this bushing out at some point too. Whew, a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff. Got most of the axle as clean as I can. This is the driver's side, and I was just kind of mocking it up to see exactly where I needed to clean. Honestly, I feel like you're just better off just to clean the whole daggone axle and then just weld these on. What I plan on doing now is I'm just going to wipe everything down with some brake cleaner and a rag just to get any contaminants off of it. As you can see on my hand, there's quite a bit of contaminants, but right up here, I feel like I'm gonna have to do a little bit better job sanding. So you can see right there where that's what you want whenever you're welding. You really don't want where it's kind of sporous and any contaminants in there that could really affect the weld in a bad way. But I have all of this cleaned up. I'm about to take Easton to a sleepover, but it really wasn't that bad. It just took a little bit. And the best part about it, I didn't get that much on me, so that's another plus.
Why do I still have some of my face?
So I'm going to take a break from the Dana 30, and Patrick here is going to start working on the Unibody. Are you glad I saved that for you?
Yeah.
So we're just getting this nasty gunk off the Unibody. It really serves no purpose at all. And the reason that we're doing it is we're putting Unibody stiffeners on, and I'm actually probably going to go ahead and cut these brackets off. So these are the factory lower control arm brackets, and obviously we're not going to need them anymore, so I'm probably just going to zip them right off with the plasma cutter and try to avoid those gas lines and hopefully not start another Cherokee fire like we did on Patrick's here. Hey, your Jeep didn't burn down, so that's all that matters. All right, well, I'm gonna fire up the plasma cutter and we're gonna get to work. So it is a new day in the shop, and as you can see behind me, we've got everything kind of cleaned up. I did sweep up, take the air compressor, and just kind of clean up everywhere as good as I can, just because that rubber coating just gets on everything and it's just super gross. This was a huge pain in the butt, but look how good this looks now. Got the Unibody all cleaned up right there, got all this down to bare metal. I'm gonna come back. So I've already hit it with the air compressor, but I'm gonna come back with a little bit of brake clean just to get up all any contaminants or any grease or anything like that, because we're gonna be welding on these Unibody stiffeners right there past my tripod. So these are unibody stiffeners for a XJ from Barnes. They make, I would say they are my favorite unibody stiffeners. Some of they're already kind of pre-bent, and that helps a ton whenever you are putting these unibody stiffeners on. So the only thing that we did not do is we didn't clean this up yet because we were lazy and just left the tires on. We're gonna do this whole section at one time. So whenever we do the coil spring conversions in the rear, that's where we're gonna be doing the unibody stiffeners on the rear then. So right now I'm just focused from like this point forward. Like there's just so much to do. I don't even know where to start. Like I don't know if I need to start on the unibody stiffeners. I don't know if I need to start on the truss. I need to replace that bushing. Oh man, there's a lot to do, but I'm not gonna get anything done whining and complaining on YouTube. So what I think I'm gonna work on is I'm gonna work on getting these unibody stiffeners figured out. But that's really the only thing that I'm really unsure of is how this Iron Rock kit is going to play with the Barnes four-wheel drive unibody stiffeners. So that's kind of like the unknown, and I want to go ahead and figure out the clearance issues there. I know that the Iron Rock off-road kit, it will work with unibody stiffeners, but will it work with Barnes unibody stiffeners? I will make it work, but I want to see what all is involved in that. So I think that's what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna figure out exactly where the unibody stiffeners need to go, and then we're gonna get those on. And with unibody stiffeners, the main thing I would recommend is just prep work. Go ahead and prep the unibody stiffeners, and what I mean by that is go ahead and clean them off with some brake cleaner, get all the contaminants and the grease off of them, because whenever they ship that, they have like a oily coating so that they don't flash rust on the way to you in case they get wet or something like that. So definitely, I'm going to be cleaning all of the unibody stiffeners with some brake clean, and I'm actually going to be painting the back side of the unibody stiffeners with some Steel It. So this is what I use to paint the back of the unibody stiffeners, and I'm going to be painting the unibody where I'm going to, so once I clean the unibody with brake clean, I'm going to hit it with some Steel It, just because I don't want any exposed raw materials because it'll rust. I've seen so many vehicles where people have put unibody stiffeners on where they didn't paint anything. They just took the backside of the raw unibody stiffener and then the raw unibody and welded on. Eventually it's gonna rust on the inside, and then what's that gonna do? It's gonna rust your unibody. So what I like to do is I like to paint the backside of my unibody stiffeners, and then I like to paint the unibody with Steel It, because Steel It is a weldable paint and it doesn't burn off as quick as regular spray paint. And then I like to come back with seam sealer, and that really just eliminates any moisture getting behind that unibody. I don't even know why I showered before coming out here. That was really dumb, but check this out. Got the unibody all clean and painted, just kind of waiting for it to dry. And that's what you want right there. You want all of that rubber coating off. You want bare metal, and then you want some Steel It. So that Steel It is weldable, so we'll be able to start a weld on that. And then I've got, let me take you over here. I've got the back sides of these all painted with Steel It. So what's really cool with Steel It is that, and the reason I use it on the back side right here is because if I just use regular Rust-Oleum spray paint or anything like that, as soon as I started welding, it would just try to ignite and it would burn off. The Steel It right here won't. It can take the heat a lot better. And so I know that, in the areas where I'll be welding, these places right here, I know that that paint is going to be there for years to come. Oh yeah. So I would say, but I think we're all ready to go. The hardest part, I would say, was in this corner right there. So make sure when you're doing these unibody stiffeners, you clean all the way up to right here. Right there, you want all this bare metal, because you're actually going to be on the Barnes kit. It actually comes up on that groove and you actually weld to the bottom of the floor, which I like because, it brings some integrity to the floor. So we got all that cleaned up, got it all painted with Steel It. Got the front one right here, and it's pretty obvious where these line up, but You can see the massive hole in the unibody right there, and then you've got the brake line access points. That's actually threaded. So this is where this goes right here, and everything is lined up the way it should be. Honestly, this one can be tacked on. I have to cut a little bit off right here because this does have a track bar brace on the unibody right there, and I may just have to clearance this just a wee bit so that it sits a little more flush, because you want this to sit as flush as possible because you don't want to be filling gaps with weld. You would rather just have the unibody and this as close as possible. And I know in some parts of this it's not going to be. Every unibody is different. I've probably welded on 20 unibody stiffeners over the years, and every XJ, every unibody XJ is different. They're all different. I don't know why, they just are. So I've got it clamped on. I've got it where I want it. And everywhere that I see, except for right there, I'm gonna have to tap that with a hammer, but everywhere else, it's touching the unibody. So it's touching all right here, all right there. And just another tip, this is a very dirty welding job. I wouldn't call this like a fun welding job. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of grime, there's gonna be a lot of splatter. It's just how it is. You kind of got to embrace the suck and just do it. And so what I like to do after I do my first tack welds is I like to look at the tack welds and make sure they're not sporous, or make sure there's not any contaminants or any, blowback, a lot of it or anything. That way, your tack welds will tell you a lot about how your weld is gonna go. I'm not a professional welder or anything, but that's just, if you start getting bad tack welds, you're gonna have bad welds. So that's just a little welding tip. Y'all are getting a lot out of this video today. So I've got the front tacked on, and before I go any further, I want to press up this very end just maybe by a 1/16 of an inch. I just want pressure on it before I tack weld it. So I'm just using some jack handles and a jack, and I know the vehicle is stable, so we're good there. You see that movement? I don't know if you saw that, but it moved just a wee bit. Oh man, that is so sweet. So what that did was it kind of put a curve in that metal just enough so it follows along the unibody. So now on the clamp, I'm gonna clamp it down super hard and kind of pull that unibody stiffener in. I feel like I need like 4 hands doing something, because I need it pushed up, and I need it pulled in, and then I need it bent, and then I need to weld it. So there's a lot going on. So now that I have that all tacked on, I'm just gonna go through and just start stitch welding this. And I'm gonna let it cool, and I'm gonna kind of jump around a little bit, because I don't want to, concentrate all my welds on this area right here, and that's gonna make that metal brittle. So I've got most of the welding done on this right here. So now I'm gonna jump to the opposite side. To be honest with you, I've already got it tagged on. I've been kind of jumping back and forth just to keep the heat down on the unibody. Patrick just showed up. Patrick's gonna be doing the hard work. He's gonna be taking out the transfer case. We are gonna be doing a slip yoke eliminator. So while the Jeep is up in the air, we're gonna go ahead and get that transfer case out.
Cakes and pies, cakes and pies.
Get your hat on.
Ball cap.